Hi everyone, my name is Joe, and I was recently accepted into Sheridan's Bachelor's of Animation program. This was my first time applying, so I'm still really shocked that I got in, and I couldn't be more thankful to my amazing friends and family who supported me every step of the way, even when I complained a lot. I was accepted with a total score of 89%, and I'm pretty satisfied with my results overall. This video is more so a personal reflection on each aspect of my portfolio process, so please don't take my tips as fact or truth. This is simply what I found helpful throughout my journey, so if this video provides a new, fresh, interesting perspective for you during your portfolio journey or any artistic journey at all, that'd be more than enough for me. First up is figure drawing, which I scored a 12 out of 15 on. Honestly, these figures are not really my best work, and all I've been able to think about when I remember my figure drawing score is how I could have scored even a percentage higher if I'd managed my time better and had gone to a few more in-person sessions. So every single person who has ever made a portfolio video and told you to keep practicing and to not put this section off is right, and you should take their advice. Live figure drawing is very different from drawing from photos, so give yourself a lot of grace and plenty of time to get used to it if you haven't already. Next up is the character rotation, which I scored a 14 out of 15 on. For my first time rotating a character, I'm honestly really proud of myself for this one. I did a little bit extra by putting my little guy into a more exaggerated pose, which isn't completely necessary, but could serve as a plus if done well, since it makes the character a bit more interactive and lively. There are many different ways to make a character appealing, like playing with the weight distribution and coming up with more dynamic compositions with your simple shapes. This makes it so that you don't need to spend a lot of time drawing in super tiny details, which isn't what they're looking for anyway. Consistency is probably one of the biggest points of the grade, so if it's your first time rotating a character, lean into what you find fun and focus on the big picture and how all the elements of the character come into play together to tell the viewer who this is. I also recommend using your tools. It's hard to tell if you're drawing your character consistently, so making a rough 3D reference of your character will be a huge help. This is a personal shout out to one of my best friends, Sandra, who kindly put together this really cute model of my guy on Blender for me, and it saved me multiple times throughout the process. Thank you, Sandra. For my short animation, I scored a 14 out of 15. I kept it super simple because I figured they weren't really looking for anything insanely complicated or action-packed or special effects or stuff like that, and I guess I was right. They're just trying to see if you can take the provided character and animate it following the 12 principles of animation. Very basic. So if you're kind of like me and you've never really sat down to animate something specific like this before, it's okay if your end product is short and simple. I also didn't want to spend too much time rendering and toning it. The rubric will tell you that rough is okay, and they're not kidding about that. It's okay to keep your short animation sketchy. It saves you a lot of time and allows you to focus more on keeping your animation fluid, believable, and fun. I think I personally had a hard time visualizing the hard drive as an actual being or character, so squishing and squashing it felt a bit weird and unrealistic. Don't worry about that and following what you understand about an actual hard drive. It's useful for visual reference and keeping the model consistent, but at the end of the day, this is an animation and it is still a character, and it's your job to bring it to life. So really lean into manipulating the material and its movement to demonstrate your understanding of animation principles. If there was any section I was expecting to tank my grade a bit, I knew it would be the storyboard, mostly because Sheridan is notorious for being harsh on it. And if there was one piece of advice I wish I'd taken much earlier on during my portfolio process, it would be to practice drawing the character. I cannot draw this cat for the life of me. You could not make me. Or you could, because I could have practiced more, but I didn't, so practice. Just practice. Other than that though, there were definitely some issues with consistency in my visual storytelling. It's very important that your storyboard leaves no room for doubt and confusion, because the moment someone is even slightly unsure about what's going on, it's honestly lost. You've lost them. One example from my storyboard is that I didn't include a panel of the cake going into the oven. The jump from mixing the batter to a freshly baked cake is a bit jarring and sudden, and even if the viewer took the time to fit the pieces together in their head, it's always better to keep it smooth for them and provide all the visual information they need to make sense of what's going on without needing to pause and rethink. This is also why I recommend not using the given lines to describe your story in words. Anyone can understand your storyboard if they have a short sentence under each panel that explains what's going on. It's important to think, Is describing the scene redundant, and can I find a way to communicate it visually? For my perspective layouts, I scored a 13 out of 15. Honestly, out of all the sections, I had the most fun and liberty making these drawings. It was super fun to come up with different scenes and stories, and to gather the reference material I needed to customize them. Part of the beauty I find in these kinds of perspective drawings is that the artist provides just enough visual information for you to understand what you're looking at. I think one of my biggest tips is to remember that while this is a perspective layout drawing, your environment is not completely separate from the character and vice versa. Think about the environment as a character itself, and remember that it is a necessary storytelling device, not just a flat backdrop for the character. Having the character interact with your environment prevents it from appearing flat, disjointed, or inconsistent. For example, in my interior, another option would have been to have the frog rummage through these cupboards, which would have been a more explicit depiction of my understanding of proportion and perspective than simply having the frog sitting on the windowsill without physically interacting with anything else in the room. I'm really happy with how my personals carried my score. I got a 24 out of 25, which I was pleasantly surprised by. There's honestly not a lot for me to say for personals because at the end of the day, this is your personal work, and what you submit depends on what you've made and what you like making, but I can give a few pointers based on what I've submitted. I submitted 2 character designs, which I honestly didn't really want to do. I wanted to submit one character lineup and then a separate character exploration sheet that dove into more expression work and things like that, but ultimately I ran out of time. Regardless, for any kind of character or viz dev work, rough is okay. It doesn't have to be super clean and polished or rendered at all. Even if I'd colored these rough poses, it wouldn't have added anything new. The rough sketch communicates all there is to know about the face and the character's personality, and that's enough. I also submitted a stop-motion animated short film I made a couple years ago for a tech class, as well as close-up photos of the set I built for it. I think submitting any kind of film work is definitely an asset, since animation isn't just about drawing well. You have to be able to use those artistic skills to tell moving stories, so anything that involves working with camera angles, scripts, things like that, no matter how scrappy or homemade it looks, will hopefully give you an advantage. Lastly, Sheridan included a new sketchbook submission requirement to the portfolio this year. Honestly speaking, I feel like my sketchbook is the strongest aspect of my entire portfolio. Fooling around in my sketchbook is just a part of my daily life, and I tried to choose pages that effectively portray just how much I like to draw, and that I would have kept drawing regardless of my application results. I honestly think, in my personal opinion, that that's the most important thing to consider when submitting a sketchbook. It was something I had to remind myself over and over again throughout the portfolio process. What am I doing this for? What do I like, and why do I like to do it? Don't worry about appealing to these judges you don't even know the names of. As cheesy as it feels to say it, you gotta just keep it weird and silly and unique and experimental. It doesn't have to be neat or perfect or purely filled with anatomical studies of bones. Obviously, those are cool, but that defeats the whole point of your personal sketchbook. Even in school, where a lot of your time will be dedicated to the fundamentals and what your professors like, you need to maintain that personal spark that keeps you creating and reminds you why you're doing this in the first place. That's about it for me. Thank you so much for watching. To all future applicants, best of luck, you'll do great. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm super excited to meet everyone in September and get to know all my talented and amazing peers. See you!